he would rather take a linebacker or a defensive end / defensive back over Fernando Mendoza. Okay, mind-boggling. All right, everyone, welcome back. This is episode 72 of Bando's Breakdowns, back in your life. Happy 2026 to anyone and everyone who is still celebrating the start of a new year. My name is Zain Bando, the host of Bando's Breakdowns. Good to be back talking to you guys this Friday afternoon. It's been a busy week in the world of sports. Here to break it down with you all on this fine Friday afternoon from the Chicago suburbs. Good to have you guys come in and check this one out on your Friday afternoon. Going to be a fun show today. We have a lot to talk about, some NFL, some college football, some other particulars as well. But before we get into any of that and everything else that is the Bando's Breakdowns product, podcast, and of course platform as well that we're under, everything about ETB, let's go through some particulars. So please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. To do so, go to youtube.com/ETB network. Again, youtube.com/ETBNETWRK. You can subscribe to get all of the latest sports content across the ETB ecosystem. This show, Forever Power 5, which actually premiered last night live before the Ole Miss Miami CFP game, which was very, very exciting. So shout out to Trevor, myself, and Nick DiMartino for being a part of that. We also had some other stuff that's going out on the channel as well. We have live episodes of Press Row. We have tons of other stuff that continues to go out on pretty much an every other day basis, including live episodes of Football Forecast. You'll be able to check those out live during the postseason, all the way through the Super Bowl. With myself, Johnny Montalbano will be there. Christy Wilson will be there. More than likely, Ben Cruz will be there. Nick Morganson will be there. Pretty much the entire ETB crew will be there. The same crew that you guys have come to know and recognize on the Football Forecast will be joining. Collectively live to preview every single round, game by game, of the NFL playoffs. There may be some new rules in place as well for picks and different things like that. So if you want to check that out, you certainly can. That's a shameless plug for Football Forecast. But if you want to listen to Bando's Breakdowns, you can do so. Listen to Bando's Breakdowns for your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, and so much more. In fact, you actually get the audio edition early. So by the time you're watching the video version of this, you may have already heard me, given that everybody kind of runs on different schedules. So if you want an early edition of Bando's Breakdowns, those come out every Thursday evening, every Friday, Thursday evening and Friday morning, rather, at midnight Eastern. So stay tuned for those every single week. Of course, though, the version that you are checking out, of course, is the video-only version premiering right now. But if you want me early, you can get me early. And if you want just me, Zambian, and or at least me and or, of course, myself, Zain Bando, you check me out. I'm a sports journalist and an ETB Network co-host. For those of you guys, it's a new year. It's a new beginning for some of you guys, based on whether you are checking out different shows or have been habitual in the same shows and you want to check me out for the very first time. Welcome. It's good to have you. So I am Zain Bando. Just a brief intro about myself before we get into everything else. We've done 72 of these shows by now, so you may already know who I am, but if you don't, I'll give you a brief synopsis. I'm a sports journalist and an ETB Network co-host. Essentially, what that means is I am an independent sports journalist for several different publications across the the internet ecosystem, and that's where you can catch my content. So I specialize in Big Ten football, Big Ten men's basketball, and of course mixed martial arts, primarily covering the Ultimate Fighting Championship, as well as dabbling into some Dallas Wings content as well. Some of the major outlets to which you can find my work on. You can find my work over at MMA Knockout on Sports Illustrated. You can find my work over at Dallas Wings on Sports Illustrated. You can find my work over at Ohio State on Sports Illustrated. You can also check out the bulk of my work over at the Sporting News, where essentially it's been college football all the time, a curated feed updated almost every couple of hours on the latest Big Ten football news. We're going to transition into college basketball after the college football season fully wraps up, but there's so much going on in the college football sphere right now that we have to strike where the iron's hot. Regarding the UFC, we are still in a holding pattern before UFC 324 in Las Vegas. And yeah, so that's where you can check me out over on all of those different written vehicles, if you will. But you came here for my unfiltered opinions and my unfiltered thoughts on the world in sports. So let's get to the main order of business. Thank you for hearing me ramble on, but happy 2026 to everyone that is here, because maybe you've never seen the show before. So by the end, hopefully you like it, hopefully you stay, and hopefully you come back from work, because this is every Friday moving forward. We take very few off weeks on this program throughout the year. I would say 300 out of the 365 days in a given year. There's probably content for me, I would say 200 plus of the days, maybe more, at least once a week with this show, minus some scheduling conflicts with holidays and stuff like that, where we take a week off here and there. But nonetheless, though, we're pretty much on all the time, which is what makes my show very, very easily accessible. So you like an easily accessible show and you like some of the stuff you've heard so far, I think you're really going to like the episode. Let's get into the episode itself, and we're already 7 minutes into the podcast itself. Haven't really talked about much, but let's talk about stuff now. Let's talk about the NFL playoffs. Let's preview the NFL playoffs. Let's go over the full bracket. I will give you my predictions for every single game of the 2025-26 college, or excuse me, NFL postseason. Yes, this is what happens when postseasons clash. Your head's in one spot, but where you're physically at, what you're physically thinking about, and mentally thinking about is totally different. Nonetheless, though, you guys get what I mean. It is the NFL postseason. We are finally here. We made it. It is early January. We're finally in the playoffs. 18 weeks have come and gone, and now in just over a month's time, a month and a few days, we will crown a Super Bowl champion in Santa Clara, California. And for those of you that have followed me for quite a bit, you know that I had a rematch of Super Bowl 1 in Super Bowl 60. Obviously, one of those teams didn't make the playoffs. That was the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, Green Bay is in as a wild card. It is the number 7 seed taking on the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field tomorrow night. So there's a chance we could have one side of the Super Bowl from the preseason complete, but nonetheless, we probably won't at all. So with that said, let's get into my postseason predictions, because you guys have waited this whole time to hear who is going to the Super Bowl. So, with all that being said, and so much more, let's take a look at the postseason. But before we do that, because it would be a disservice if we didn't do this. It would be a total disservice if we weren't transparent and we didn't say how we finished for the year overall, straight up in the NFL. For those of you who follow me on here and have followed me for quite a bit, we did really, really, really freaking good. Straight up this year, we were 174-97. We didn't miss a single game. and we finished week 18 with a 12-4 overall record straight up. Against the spread, unfortunately, though, I'm a little bit worse. And while we're sitting here, we might as well just tell you what our overall spread record was at the end of the regular season. If I can pull it up. 1 second here. I don't know if this is okay. So the final record for yours truly through 18 weeks of the regular season was, without further ado, drum roll please, 128, 142, and 2. It was a bit of a rougher stretch against the spread. For those of you who follow football forecast, I'm just going to tell you now because I'm sitting here. We finished the regular season individually, at least for me, at 276 points. We had 8 locks hit through 17 weeks. We did not hit our lock in week number 18. Unfortunately, our lock was the Bengals, and it did lose, so we did finish the year on lock predictions at 8-9. But we hope to do a little bit better in the postseason. So let me give you my predictions for the NFL playoffs now that we finally made it to that point. It is very, very close to the Super Bowl. Obviously, as I just alluded to, about a month to go until the Super Bowl actually happens. All right, here we go. Here is my bracket. Without further ado, this is it. And again, just to clarify as well, we picked every single game of this. So without further ado, here is the bracket. And this is it right here. So you guys can see on screen, here is my bracket. And of course, as you can see, I have the LA Rams defeating the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. Let's go through these predictions in the wild card round. Beginning in the AFC, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the number 4 overall seed, thanks to a Tyler Loop missed field goal in week 18, take on the surging Houston Texans, the number 5 seed. First time in Texans history that their wild card game is not the game that opens the AFC playoffs. So, with that said, I like Pittsburgh to beat Houston simply because it's Aaron Rodgers' swan song. It'll more than likely be the final team he ever plays for. Oh, you never even popped it up. So there it is. Didn't even realize we didn't pop it. That is my Super Bowl champion, the Los Angeles Rams, to defeat the New England Patriots as such in the Super Bowl. So as I was just alluding to, I like the Steelers over the Texans, the Bills over the Jaguars, the Patriots over the Chargers in the AFC for the opening round. In the opening round for the NFC, I love the Rams over the Panthers, the Eagles over the 49ers, and the Bears to beat the Packers twice in a month, which would lead to the divisional playoffs. The Rams rematch Seattle for the 3rd time. I love the Rams to win that game. I just think when Matt Stafford is on and when that defense is playing well, the Rams are a really good team. Seattle's a good team too, but I just don't know if Sam Darnold can carry the Seattle team to the Super Bowl. I think it's an absolute thriller and a complete heartbreaker for the Seattle Seahawks at home. Then that would mean the Rams would go to Philadelphia for the NFC Championship game, assuming the Bears lose to the Eagles, because if the Bears win in this scenario, the Bears could be playing the entire NFC playoffs if Seattle gets eliminated at Soldier Field, which would be a big, big, big deal considering that the Bears usually are on the road for the majority of the postseason, or they have been in previous years. You got to go back to 2020. They were on the road in the wild card game against the New Orleans Saints, which obviously is one that Bears fans do not like to talk about. The last time the Bears hosted an NFL playoff game was in 2019, the 18-19 season, And of course, that was the Cody Parkey double doink. So just something to keep in mind there as well. Bears could host through the entire NFL playoffs if the Seahawks fall, presumably to the Rams or the Carolina Panthers. But with that being said, Rams, Eagles, NFC Championship, and then I really like this Patriots team with Drake May. I think the Patriots beat the Chargers, which sets up a Patriots Steelers AFC divisional round matchup in New England. New England should win that, I think, by about 10 to 13 points. I just think Rodgers is going to get rattled, and I don't think it'll go. I don't think it'll go the way that people expect. But if for whatever reason the Chargers upset New England, the Steelers could host the AFC divisional round, which I don't see happening. So give me the Patriots to beat the Steelers to go to the AFC Championship game and play the Bills, who would have upset the number one overall seed in the AFC, the Denver Broncos. And yes, I said it. The Denver Broncos run of excellence in one score games is going to come to a close. Why? And I understand you play the schedule you're dealt, but some of these games, to me, too close for comfort. And what happened when the Broncos played Jacksonville, it did not go according to plan whatsoever. And they were beaten down, especially in the second half offensively. Trevor Lawrence got the run game going, and defensively, they made a few big stands, frustrated Bo Nix, and pulled off a huge upset. And as my fellow co-host on Football Forecast and former MMA Outsiders co-host Tom Albano alluded to, this is the year that if the Bills want to try to win the Super Bowl, this is it, because you have no Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs, you have no Joe Burrow for the Bengals, you don't really have any firepower in the AFC South, and when you look over at the AFC North, it was anybody's division all the way to the end, right? And look at what happened. The Bills were able to squeak out, was able to squeak out a split against New England, even though New England won the game in Buffalo, and obviously was able to win the AFC East there. But point in saying all of that is, you just don't know in the AFC. So with that said, I think I'd be a little wary on the Denver Broncos. So that's something to bear in mind as well. I don't know about this Broncos team. So with that said, Bills and the Patriots in the AFC Championship, I just like the momentum Drake May's on. I think this New England team is good enough to go to the Super Bowl, and it'll be a rematch of the 2019 Super Bowl, which was Bill Belichick's final Super Bowl win as a coach, and his final Super Bowl win with the Patriots. Except Sean McVay exacts revenge against New England, wins a great game, a hard-fought game, and in fact, it will not be the low-scoring defensive slugfest that the 2019 game was. Give me as many points as possible. 38-31 Rams, no overtime needed. It goes down late in the fourth quarter. Matt Stafford drives down the field, finds Puka Nacua in the end zone for the win with 45 seconds to go. It's going to be one of the best Super Bowls in a really long time. A game that New England will be winning for 2.5 quarters before the Rams come back and win. They'll come back down between 7 and 10 to beat New England in the Super Bowl. Win in Santa Clara, again, 38-31. Do so in the 49ers home stadium, which would just be the absolute middle finger of epic proportions, especially if, for whatever reason, the 49ers end up making it to the NFC Championship game to play the Rams. That would be a majestic sight. Although, what's unfortunate for the 49ers is the 49ers could not get the number one overall seed. So you got to hope that Seattle gets knocked out. It's a very similar scenario. Actually, in fact, and the fact of the matter is this: 49ers couldn't even host the game if they tried, given that they're the 6th seed and the Eagles are the 3 and the Rams are the 5. So the 49ers really screwed themselves out of the 1, but nonetheless, though, should be a great NFL postseason. And again, Rams over the Patriots, 38-31 in one of the best Super Bowls in a very long time to close the 2025-2026 NFL season. All right, enough on my soapbox. That will do it for the NFL portion of this. There we go. We are back to a regular fit. My bad there. Let's go over rapid fire NFL Black Monday reaction over reaction, whatever you want to call it. First off, John Harbaugh getting fired after 18 seasons as the Baltimore Ravens head coach. Oh man, there's a lot to unpack here. So it had to happen at some point, but you just kind of feel and you say, okay, like, I mean, I feel like, you're kind of ruining a legacy here. He didn't have a fully healthy Lamar Jackson to close the year, so that obviously didn't help him. That was number one. Number two, you have a fan base and an organization that's starving for success. They haven't had immense success in a long time. It's obviously been a long time since the Ravens went to the Super Bowl. It's been a long time since the Ravens even sniffed the AFC Championship game. Obviously, they didn't make the playoffs this past year. But with that said, I don't know. I feel like this is one of those where you can't seem to even begin to comprehend why the Ravens got to the stage that they were in. But with that being said, though, the Ravens are going to be looking for a new coach. Does John Harbaugh go to the Giants? Does he go to the Raiders? Because the Raiders just fired Pete Carroll after one season, which obviously was a season that was one to forget, but it was a season as well too where it was a reality check here for the Raiders that they really need a quarterback. They need Fernando Mendoza. They need Dante Moore. And in fact, I'm going to shout him out. I was listening to JT the Brick, long time, really, really, really well-respected radio host and the host of Raider Nation Radio. And just a guy that's all around been a Raiders savant for years, a long, long, long time. Knows the Vegas scene well, knows the Bay Area scene well, dating back to their years in Oakland, and he made it very clear. He even admitted it to a caller. This guy called in. Apparently, he's a very famous name in the Raider community. And he said that he would rather take a linebacker or a defensive end / defensive back over Fernando Mendoza. Okay, mind-boggling. First off, Fernando Mendoza is one win away from winning the national championship. We'll get to the we'll get to the national championship or my thoughts on who's going to go in a little bit. But to even begin to say that Fernando Mendoza is not a worthy number one pick or not a worthy pick for Las Vegas to even target is unbelievable. It's unbelievable because if you think about it, this guy was a transfer portal product, and we're going to get to the portal in just a second. He was at Cal Berkeley. When's the last time anybody cared about Cal Berkeley football? It's been, I don't know. Even my alma mater played him in the Red Box Bowl in 2019, and nobody cared. So you go to Indiana, you have this insane season. You're undefeated. You're one win away from going to Miami. One win in two great games potentially left for you. Two great games. I mean, in two games where if Indiana wins both of these games, you look back and you say, "Oh my goodness, this might be the greatest single season for an Indiana quarterback in the history of the entire program." So there's that. That's number one. And number two, you have Curt Cignetti as your head coach. That's nothing to snooze at. Kurt Signetti has rebuilt Indiana football from the ground up. When I say the ground up, I mean the ground up, because when Tom Allen took over as head coach, Indiana was nothing. Indiana was irrelevant. He comes in with two different quarterbacks, this year being Mendoza, and they've lit up the scoreboard. He's looked unbelievable. He's made every throw in the book. The 38-3 win against Alabama was ridiculous. What I'm telling you is, if you want a guy who's committed, if you want a guy who's going to get all of his teammates involved, if you want the humblest person in the room, you draft Fernando Mendoza. It's as simple as that. Last thing I'll say on this Black Monday edition. Look, my team was in this position a year ago. The Bears hired Ben Johnson. Okay. I don't know what team is going to have the Ben Johnson type resurgence in 2026, because there's only one Ben Johnson. But I can tell you this. Whoever gets John Harbaugh is going to be thanking their lucky stars, because for most of his tenure in Baltimore, all they did was win. They were in contention for the AFC North. They went to the Super Bowl and they won the Super Bowl. They had talent everywhere, both sides of the ball, and they had one of the best defensive players of all time in Mr. Weeder himself, at least on the football field. We're not going to get into the other stuff. They also had Ray Lewis. So I'm just saying, if he goes to the Giants, you have Abdul Carter, you have Jackson Dart. Maybe the Giants draft Mendoza. Maybe they draft Dante Moore. My point in saying it is this. He's done this with young teams before. He built the Ravens from nothing. Nobody knew who Joe Flacco was coming out of the NFL draft. At least none of the major pundits really knew how good he could be. So my point in saying it is this. If he goes to the Giants, a turnaround within 2 to 3 years is not out of the realm of possibility. So one of these teams just need a name. They need a name, an established identity, and they need someone who they know, who the fan base knows that they can trust. And that person, in my humble opinion, is John Harbaugh, if John Harbaugh still has it. Because if he still has it, oh man. Because let me tell you what, he was one of the best big game postseason coaches of all time, because he knew how to make magic happen. Prime example, Broncos, Ravens, AFC wildcard game about 12 years ago, knocking Peyton Manning out of the playoffs. One of the craziest things I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, go look at it. It's literally just, I don't know, man. I don't know. Just total emotions came out, and it's one of the best playoff games ever. And I think it went to multiple overtimes too. But nonetheless, though, let's move on. The Bears lose to the Lions. This game was important because the Bears had a chance to potentially be the 1 seed, but the 1 seed dream died pretty quickly. The Bears just looked sluggish pretty much the whole game. They were down 16-0, came back in the fourth quarter, lost on a last-second field goal, were swept by the Lions, finished with a divisional record of 2-4. But I think there are a lot of takeaways. I just think, and you don't have to play this is what I don't fully get. The Bears have proven this season that they don't have to play perfect. And by the way, just for one, Dan Campbell's got to be pretty damn happy, because he saw his OC go to the Bears. He beat the Bears by 20 plus in the first game, first time they played in week 2. This time was a last-second field goal. You want to talk about the Bears-Lions rivalry meaning something now? This means everything now. It's Dan Campbell versus his former student. I don't think a lot of people are really talking about this. So many people are excited about Caleb Williams and the Bears trajectory and all the talent they have, but people seem to forget that for several years in the mid portion of the 2010s, early 2020s, this Bears Lions rivalry meant zilch, meant nothing. It meant just another game in the division on the schedule that maybe you win, maybe you don't. But even if you win, doesn't really mean something. And this year, the Lions were one win away against the Vikings from this meaning everything. They had a chance to get in the playoffs had they beat Minnesota. They played spoiler, beat the Bears, and luckily the Commanders beat the Eagles, because if the Eagles had won, the Bears would have not been the 2, and they would not be playing Green Bay Saturday night, which, by the way, is a perfect segue into Bears-Packers round 3. Bears-Packers, Soldier Field, Saturday night. Ben Johnson, Matt LaFleur. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger. And this is coming from someone who's grown up around Bears football since he was 8 years old. I remember the first NFL game I ever watched was one of the coldest games in NFL history, 2008, Bears-Packers. Bears win to keep their then slim playoff hopes alive. They were dashed the next week by the Houston Texans in week 17, but it was the first Bears game I remember watching. And I just remember the jubilation on people's faces when the famous Alex Brown play happened, and just the level of just relief that the Bears had finally beaten the Packers. They finally won. They had finally conquered Green Bay. They'd finally done something that they hadn't done at home on a consistent basis in a long time, and it showed the rivalry still meant something. These year's games were poetic as such. Green Bay wins on an interception in Lambeau Field. 2 weeks later, the Bears rally back down 16-6 to win the game. DJ Moore makes one of the best catches I've seen in years to win the rematch against Green Bay. And now both teams are kind of sluggish. You don't know where they're fully at. This is the game where it is going to be a fist fight. It's going to feel like a fist fight in a parking lot, and I can't wait, because this is what the NFL is supposed to be. Now we all talk about stars, we all talk about individual names, but gosh darn it, this is what the NFL players were supposed to be. Old school, hard-hitting, good old-fashioned rivalry games. There's really nothing better. Give me the Bears to win this game. It's a low-scoring game at Soldier Field. I think the under may even come into play here. 17-10, Bears beat the Packers. And again, it's another one of those games where, because they've done it all year, the Bears will have to come from behind and win the game. And the reason why I think their momentum is so high is because when you have Iceman in the trenches, and I'm not just saying this as a Bears fan, I've watched him all year. When you have this guy down, and I'm going to use a boxing analogy here. If there's a standing 8 count, okay, Caleb Williams always seems to get up at 7 every single time. Every single time he seems to get up at 7, and he doesn't seem to quit. Then when he throws touchdowns, these are the counter right hands you least expect. So if the Packers knock the Bears down early in quarter 1 or quarter 2, which the boxing equivalent would be in round 2 through 5, let's say we're doing a 12-round fight, it's 2 through 5, the Bears are going to pick it up in round 6. And that's when I think the whole game turns. We're in fight terms here. The Bears win round 10 TKO, which would mean in the fourth quarter, the Bears find a way to rally back, win the game. And again, I'm going to say it. They'll be down 10-0, and they will come back and win the game 17-10. That's what will happen. The Packers won't score again. The Packers will not score again. The Bears will go back down and they'll win. And the reason why I think it'll be 17-10 is because the Bears will kick a field goal inside the red zone and they will force Green Bay to drive down the field. assuming that Jordan Love is 100%, or whoever the quarterback is for Green Bay. They will force the Packers to drive down the field and win the game. It's simple as that. With the final few minutes that we have left, we don't want to go too long. We're already over the 30-minute mark. The college football transfer portal, because oh my goodness, is it crazy? Thousands and thousands of players are in. It's coming out now that some guys are committing to schools and the next day going to a different school. That's not how that's supposed to work. That's all I have to say on that. First off, Caden Hauser to Illinois, huge. Josh Hoover to Indiana, gigantic. Nick Marsh to Indiana, unbelievable. Jeremiah Smith choosing to stay in Columbus is massive. I don't think people realize how big this is. Carnell Tate declared for the NFL draft in recent days. Jeremiah Smith, the most exciting player in the sport, staying in Columbus is a massive, massive, massive boost for Ryan Day. And a boost where Ohio State has a lot to think about because Ohio State just lost to Miami. So there really is nothing more to say than the transfer portal is a mess. Keep refreshing your notifications because it's going to get worse. And I want to do this too. Sometimes, guys, the guys you least expect going in the portal are some of the best players in the country. David Alano is one of them. He's one of the best field goal kickers in the Big Ten. Transferring to Texas A&M is a huge deal. He just gave that team a huge boost and left Illinois with a massive hole. It remains to be seen how Brett Bielema fixes it. And speaking of Brett Bielema, my trip, Music City Bowl, man, it was unbelievable. The amount of electricity in Nashville was like nothing I've ever seen before. It was a fantastic few days, man. Orange everywhere, whether it was burnt orange for Tennessee, orange and blue for Illinois. It was awesome. And you want to talk about just the amount of excitement around a single football game in a city that just lives and breathes entertainment. Oh, man, because the Illinois fans showed out in droves. The Tennessee fans made the short trek. It was unreal. And the game itself was awesome. Obviously, 30-28, Illinois won the Music City Bowl. That's now 9 wins for Illinois. That's back-to-back 9+ win seasons for Illinois ever, and the first time that Brett Bielema has ever done so. Unreal ending to a great year. Luke Altmaier is he was majestic in that final game. I'm excited to see if he gets drafted in the NFL because there's no more humble of a quarterback in the Big Ten, maybe besides Mendoza, who deserves to be drafted by a team more than Luke Altmaier does. This game was just awesome. I had a total blast being there. Actually, stay tuned for a very special interview next week regarding the Music City Bowl. We're going to talk to someone who was a major stakeholder in making the game happen. So stay tuned for episode 73 next week. You won't want to miss that one, as this person who I'd rather keep anonymous until you guys see it was instrumental in making the game happen. So this was a great trip. It's my third bowl game I've covered. That's now 2 bowl games, 2 years in a row, 2 wins over the SEC. And let's just say this, Brett Bielema's Twitter presence remains undefeated. But let's move on now. Final few topics. The Peach Bowl. We already picked this game on Bando's Blitz. We'll pick it again. I've already kind of previewed it here throughout the show. Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore. One of the biggest games in maybe the history of the New York Jets franchise. And I'm not exaggerating. And for someone who is probably going to be in the midst of editing this, he will probably roll his eyes, but it's true. These are the 2 quarterbacks that the Jets may target. These are the 2 quarterbacks the Raiders may target. And who knows? These are the 2 quarterbacks the Giants may target. But from the lens itself, Indiana, 3.5-point favorite, 48.5 over-under. I love Indiana in this game. I love Indiana to beat Oregon again. I think they're going to do it. I just think they have too much firepower. And I just think Hertz Ignetti's built different, man. They are quickly becoming what the Alabama SEC teams were, but their own Big Ten flair to it. And I think people are going to be afraid of Indiana going into next year because they're just continuing to reload and get better. And this is another step towards being one of the elite teams in college football. Give me Indiana to cover this number. Again, another great game. I think it'll be 38-34. They just barely covered the number. Dante Moore drives down the field and has a 3-and-out to lose the game for the Ducks. That means that we will have one Big Ten team in, and at the time that we're recording this, we don't know who won the Fiesta Bowl, but by the time this comes out, you will know whether Ole Miss or Miami has won that game, respectively. But that's going to do it for that. Final two topics here. One thing I saw on 3, turning off the X replies in favor of Grok. This is hilarious because everybody is so confused right now as to what is going on with the transfer portal itself. It is one of those where you just simply don't know what you don't know. And Grok was supposed to be a resource for that. I think On3 is just trying to cover themselves because they realize that they have a huge job to do in making sure that all of this transfer portal news is out and they don't want any extra negative publicity. So that is why, in my opinion, I think they're doing that. And just a quick 90 seconds or so on this. Look, the UFC Paramount library was released fairly recently, and I've seen it, and it looks cool. It's all categorized by legends, best of the 2000s, best of the 2010s, the champs, all that stuff. Guys, let's be real. Fight Pass, right now as we speak, is infinitely better than Paramount. And I'm going to explain. Fight Pass has everything. It has UFC, Dana White Contender Series, Ultimate Fighter, every single league the UFC and Zuffa have ever bought, every event archive, all that stuff. The earliest the UFC goes back to in this Paramount library is 2000. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with it. But when you have a launch of a $7.7 billion deal, $1.7 billion per year over 7 years, you release the whole freaking library. I open the damn thing. The earliest it goes back to on the main screen is UFC 246. Guys, we're missing UFC 200 as a full event. We're missing UFC 100 as a full event. For me to only be able to watch UFC 300 right now as the only 0-0 event, as like a major marquee event, is a travesty. So the UFC better fix this. I am not a fan of it. The overall service, though, is great. The streams are awesome. I've had no lag issues, nothing, everything plays. But guys, take a note from Fight Pass. Release the whole library. It's January 9th. We have till January 24th. That's the first UFC back. Release the whole dang library so everybody can watch it. People didn't pay $60 a year to watch a 85-90% of their library. They paid to watch the whole damn library. So it's as simple as that. No errors this week as far as I can tell, but it was a very fun episode. Thanks again for riding along with me. I was fired up today, if you guys couldn't tell. And that's going to do it for Bando's Breakdowns. This was episode 72, the first episode in 2026. Just a few quick reminders. YouTube.com/EDB Network would be greatly appreciated if you subscribed. And of course, you can listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts and follow the show across social media at Bando's Breakdown. And of course, as you see at the bottom of the screen, you can follow me at Zain Bando 99. That is at ZAINBANDO 99 would be greatly appreciated. For everybody here at the Empty the Bench Podcast Network, though, my name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another edition of BB. We will be back next week with more scorching opinions and all the great stuff that goes on in my little bubble of sports. But until next week, have a good one. Enjoy the first round of the NFL playoffs and stay tuned for much more to come here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Have a good one, everyone. Cheers.